So guys, it's been quite some time since my last update. That's because I was here in the Tränenpalast Palace. So it's basically called like the Temple of Tears in English, and I'll explain quickly why that is. First of all, behind me you have the Friedrichstraße train station, which is one of the main train stations in central Berlin. It's connected directly after the Hauptbahnhof, the main station, and it was built in the 19th century and has always been one of the main stations. In fact, it was the main border crossing between East and West Berlin, since it was pretty much located almost in between the two cities. It's actually in the East Berlin side, but it's very close to the border, so this was used essentially for rail traffic between the two cities. Anyways, this hall was added to the 19th century train station on the East Berlin side after the wall was erected, the Berlin Wall, in order to serve as a custom or border crossing. Obviously, before then, people could enter and get onto trains freely in the station, but once the crossing was prohibited, this served as basically a customs or kind of an airport clearance in order to only allow West Berliners through, because East Berliners could not simply go to West Berlin. It was not allowed. So, and the reason why it's called the Temple of Tears is because so many people would be crying, because if a East Berliner was able to obtain a visa to go across to West Berlin, and they would be leaving all of their family, it was never apparent when they would be able to come back. So it was pretty much like a permanent farewell. So they would often be crying, many families here, as they said their final adieus to their relatives. So it's a very kind of a sad association. That's why it's called the Temple of Tears. But happily today you can see that although that would be the connection into the train station, the only connection from East Berlin into the train station, it's cut off, of course, because anybody can go on the train as long as they have a ticket, and it's extremely fortunate. Anyways, it's a very interesting place. It's also free admission, so it's quite an interesting exposition to check out if one is in Berlin, and I enjoyed it. So I'm still on Friedrichstraße. As you can see, you have there the Friedrichstraße Palace. So it's the same road that train station was located on. So this is one of the main performance venues in Berlin, but unfortunately there's no access to it, I believe, on a Saturday. However, it's still quite an architecturally impressive structure. What's going on, guys? So I'm here on the Prenzlauer Promenade. It's quite a wide street with a main boulevard in the middle where people can walk, and in that direction actually is Checkpoint Charlie, which I'm going to check out soon. And I also want to look at the Museum Island, which is a very important section of the city, similar to the island in Paris where the Notre Dame Cathedral is located. I forget what that one's called, but it's pretty much in the center of the city, and it's where all of the main museums are located, such as the Pergamon. That's Friedrichstraße just back there that I crossed, and I have this nice little makeshift sandwich with ciabatta bread and ham and cheese, and it's actually really good. I also had some bananas, so you can check that out, but just enjoying the food, and I'm gonna head once more to the Checkpoint Charlie in a second once I'm done this. So here we have what seems to be one of the operas in Berlin. It might be the main one, but it's such a big city that I'm pretty sure there's multiple, but it's closed. However, I still wanted to highlight, you have here 3 gold stones, which are very prevalent in Germany. So you can see there, each one represents a Jewish person which was a member, like part of the Holocaust, so deported or fled or was killed. And of course, since this is an opera, nobody lived here. It's rather that they worked here. So not even if they worked in somewhere, not even if it was their home, if it was also their place of work, they're commemorated by those stones. And it has a specific name, but I forgot what it's called. It also has some German meaning as well, so if I remember, I'll tell you guys. So guys, I'm currently beside the Russian embassy in Berlin, which has to be the largest Russian embassy in the world, given the involvement of the Soviet Union in Berlin during the Cold War. And you can check out the building, which goes all the way from here or from there to here. It likely is probably one of the largest contiguous buildings in Berlin, and it's impressive. But as you can notice, the entire sidewalk is inaccessible on this side, and you can even see there's a policeman standing there. And this is actually the back. So in the front side, the entire sidewalk is also closed. There's much more police presence, and there's also a massive Russian flag on top of the building, but it's not visible from here. And then in the middle section of the road, which is also pedestrian accessible, they have a Ukrainian anti-Russian protest that probably occurs daily. It was there when I was standing. But it's incredible, of course, since they're involved in the war, that they still have their building here, which leads, I would assume, to many tense altercations. So that's why they pretty much closed the sidewalk off for any access on both sides. So I'm now on the short side of the Russian embassy, which is probably only a couple hundred meters. And beside it, you have the British embassy with the massive Union Jack. So that's also a really big embassy. And I can imagine that the three powers that were here on the Allied side, so the French, the British, and the Americans, all have massive embassies similar to the Soviets. So guys, I was actually on my way to the Museum Island, but this interesting store caught my attention. So you can see lots of different traffic lights and a traffic man, or a light man, I don't know, it's Ampelmann in German, so like traffic light man, I guess. And I just asked why this store has any significance, like what's the story behind it, and it seems to be the case that this symbol was used in all of the Eastern Berlin traffic signals, and it was thicker than the West Berlin one, so they had essentially received some distinction, I don't know, between these two signs. I'm sure on Wikipedia has a better explanation, but it has turned into a brand now, and as I passed on the bus I had to check it out. So it's quite interesting that such a trivial thing had a historical significance. So I've arrived at the Museum Island, and I'm currently at the Old Art Museum, but there's many different museums all around me. I'm not sure which ones are which. I'm pretty sure that that's the Pergamon Museum, but I could be mistaken. There's the Berlin Dome, which is seems to be the most famous cathedral in Berlin. It's just there behind those trees, but there's currently a service occurring, so there is no possibility to enter. Otherwise, it's just a very architecturally significant sector of the city because of all of the museums, which have quite a elaborate design. And yeah, I'm gonna keep on looking. So guys, seems to be here where the Pergamon Museum is situated, and from everything that I have heard, it's the most notorious or well-known museum in Berlin, in Germany, since whatever is the best in Berlin is by default the best in Germany. But yeah, you see the main entrance here. It seems to be closed, but I went inside already. Of course, I won't be going today since it's closing in an hour. However, perhaps I'll come back at some point. But the issue is when you trying to balance discovering the city itself and going into these museums, if you want to sufficiently kind of exhibit or look through these museums, it's going to take you like half a day. So it's definitely an equilibrium trying to go to the museums and also walk around the city. Here we have yet another museum of the Museum Island, of the Bode Museum. It also seems to house many different historical artifacts. You can also see there, that's an extension to the Pergamon Museum behind me. It's called the Panorama Pergamon. It seems that it's the case because of the circular design, but I'm not sure actually what's located there. And then you can also see there, of course, the Berlin, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's like their radio tower, kind of like the CN Tower in Toronto. And it's visible from almost any point in the city. So guys, we have some foreboding weather. I'm not sure what's gonna happen. Luckily, I'm actually gonna have to leave in 25 minutes. That's when my train comes. But I'm still trying to savor these last few moments on the Museum Island. You can see here you have what's called the Lustgarten, but that's at least what it's called in German, yeah. And it's a very big open space where there's live music. Right now nobody's playing music, but there was just a moment ago, and everybody's just having a picnic. That's the old museum there, so yet another one. And that's the church behind me, the cathedral. It's called the Berlin Dome. And then I'm actually gonna have to go in that direction to get to my train station towards the Fernzentrum. So that's where I'm gonna be heading. But before that, I'm gonna check out a few more of these museums from the outside. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I might record a few other clips, but I hope you enjoy. So guys, I'm about to reach the train station, but this square that I'm just in front of is absolutely incredible. So you have this one here called Neptune, a fountain called Neptunenbrunnen. So I think that has something to do with Neptune, a Roman god. I'm not sure what the Greek equivalent is. Perhaps it's Poseidon, but I'm not sure. And then there's a church here. What seems to be some type of religious institution on this side. It's also in that clay kind of, I'm not sure what that terracotta, I think it's called, the color of those bricks that they use. That's a very beautiful building as well. And then of course the Berlin Fernsehzentrum, so like the TV tower, and the train station is called Alexanderplatz. It's just behind the tower, so that leads me to believe that this could be Alexanderplatz itself, because of course that means Alexander Square, but the train station itself is not a square, so there has to be some square named Alexander in the vicinity. But anyways, I'm gonna head to the station. Still got 12 minutes, and